Hey everyone, today I'll be responding to video post number 2 in week 2. I'll be defining and discussing ethical behavior, providing some real world examples of how ethical and unethical behavior can be observed in our society, and I'll be concluding my discussion discussing the differences between absolute morality that's rooted in God's word and relative morality. So, what are ethics? Ethics are moral principles that set standards of good or bad, doing right or wrong in one's conduct, and thereby guiding the behavior of a person or a group. Ethical behavior is what is accepted to be good and right, as opposed to bad or wrong in the governing moral code. Good ethical behavior really depends on the individual sets of values, which are the underlying beliefs that he or she may have, and the attitudes that help determine their individual behavior. As a result, poor values can therefore produce unethical behavior. So there are also 4 alternative views of ethical behavior that's in our society. The first is the utilitarian behavior, which is delivering the greatest good to the greatest number of people. An example is that a manager may cut jobs in order to keep the business profitable in the nearby future, while also helping the other people that still kept their jobs and help their families and all that. The second view is the individualism view, which advances the long-term self-interest of one person. The moral rights view respects and protects fundamental rights, and the justice view treats people impartially and fairly according to guiding rules and standards. After researching business articles online, I found some common examples of ethical versus unethical behavior, specifically in the business workplace. Ethical behavior, some common examples I found was as simple as tipping your waiter, even when you don't want to, because of their slow service. But tipping them is a good sign of an ethical behavior. Having a compassionate, loving heart to all people, treating everyone the same. Apologizing for your mistakes, even when it's hard. That shows your character and who you are as a person. I also researched online a Harvard Business Review article, which shared 6 different traits of ethical behavior. And just very quickly, it talked about being conscious, being morally attentive, voicing concerns more quickly, prioritizing the needs of the customer, being assertive in the workplace, and being proactive. All of these are great examples of ethical behavior in the workplace. Unethical behavior is, I have had some experiences in my time as working for Starbucks in the years past, and I was able to really see how people interact with customers, as the workers interact with customers, and how they interact with one another. And this is obviously the bad side, but oftentimes people in Starbucks or in any other company misuse company time. They clock in or out after their approved shift time, and they often hang around, but they're still clocked in. This is a common theme that I saw in the workplace, and that was therefore addressed. Also, abusive behavior towards a customer or a coworker. Oftentimes, people can be harsh in their tone, in their use of words to one another, and it can hurt the team chemistry that you have already developed, and therefore your performance. Also, employee theft, where stealing money from a cash till or stealing inventory products. Wherever this might be, this is a very common thing because people become desperate, as we know. And also lying to employees. A common theme is when you're covering a person's shift. You may say that, yeah, I can cover a person's shift, but then you no-show, and that affects the person that was relying on you. And also, moving on to our discussion to absolute versus relative morality. Absolute morality in God's word is just doing good in the eyes of God. God is everywhere. He's omnipresent. He sees what you do. He sees the decisions that you make, whether that's right or wrong. Absolute morality is universal and it's unchanging. It's not like an ethical dilemma where sometimes you have to make decisions which may not always be in line with your conscience. But relative morality is doing good or bad can be like judged by the people or the culture of that time. It's not universally accepted. It changes over time. But overall, when we talk about absolute morality, and I believe that's the way to go, that's how I root my life. I think of a common verse as 2 Corinthians 5, verse 10, which says, "For we all must appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may receive what is due for what he has done in the body, whether good or evil." This is a Bible verse that we can root our lives as we move forward, as we will be judged someday for our actions. Thanks, guys, for listening.